Good morning. Welcome back to the Stridecast. I'm Cav. I'm your host, and I'm here today with a dear friend and a colleague of mine, Kristin Constable. Kristin, thank you for being here this morning.
Oh, so fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is awesome. We jumped on for a few minutes before pressing record, as I typically do, and caught up a little bit. And yeah, Kristin's doing some really cool things with her life, I think, and I'm excited to talk about sort of what that looks like for you, kind of day in, day out, and the things that you're paying attention to, the things that are of the highest value for you now. Before we jump into all of that interesting stuff, Kristin, can you tell everybody sort of who you are and what you do? And
Yeah, for sure. So Cav and I know each other from the leadership coaching space. So we met a bunch of years back, and we actually go back even further. But I've been doing leadership coaching and leadership development for over 10 years now. And I have just been fascinated and intrigued by the question, like, what really makes a great leader? And through all of my work and experience coaching now like thousands of people, I've kind of come to this concept or philosophy that I call whole life leadership. So the work that I do now is working with entrepreneurs and leaders in activating their inner leader and showing up as a leader in every area of their life so that they can create businesses that change the world. So it's kind of the work that I do.
that's it.
That's it. Yeah, just small stuff. Small stuff and really fun stuff.
I've referred a lot to that as of late, especially particularly where, whole life leadership, you've got a program, of course, that I've done, fascinating work. But the idea that we show up as leaders, not just as professionals and because you have a title on your desk or on your business card, but it's a whole life scenario. So it's everywhere you show up. It requires a level of leadership. And and that you really helped me bring that point home and really understand the importance of that. What does that mean for you, Kristin? So to be a whole life leader, or to be a leader in your own life, especially in a time like this?
Yeah. It's really evolved actually over the years. So how this whole how I started to like play with this idea is I got introduced to leadership quite young. So I was 23 years old, got put into a leadership position where I was leading a team of people that were like the day before my peers. And so that was interesting. And I was like frantically looking all around me for examples of like, what the hell should I be doing? How do I do this? And there's like no answers out there. Right. And so I started to like get really curious around like, who I wanted to be as a leader and who great leaders were. And I started to notice that it wasn't like, there's some people who were in leadership roles that I was like, this person is not good. And then there's other people who were showing up as leaders without that title. So I just started to really look at what that means. And at the end of the day, I think if I were to boil it down to like at the core of what it is, it's about living and leading from your values. And values are something that a lot of people, when I ask them, like, do you know what your values are? They'd be like, yeah, kind of. It's like this intuitive gut sense, but there isn't this like crystal clarity around it, around like, yes, this is what matters to me most. And this is what I would take a stand for, even if it was hard to do. Yeah. And so that's really, to me, what whole life leadership is all about. And part of that, this is the evolution of it, is that requires a level of wholeness within ourselves, because throughout our lives, we've kind of fragment off or chip off parts of ourselves that we either disown or we don't fully embrace, or we just don't even get to know. And so whole life leadership is one, yes, showing up as a leader in every area of your life, but it's coming back to our innate wholeness. And that's where real powerful leadership comes from, in my opinion.
Yep. And that you and I both align with that philosophy and that ideology, partly because you introduced a lot of that to me. And so you've been an exceptional. I have this belief that all great coaches have great coaches around them. And so I'd said this in my interview or my conversation with James Robertson a couple of days ago when he had asked me about, hey, Cav, like where did your journey through sort of defining your values and operating from that place come from? And I said, so here, and I promised him that I would thank you on our call. And so thank you for helping me kind of find that path, I guess, and really sort of sink myself into the importance of and understanding the value of defining those values, because it's been very helpful for me in building that foundation. So the way that I describe it is that once you've been able to define those values, because most people, broadly speaking, if you were to ask, hey, like, what are your core values? And that's the one that's most commonly thrown around, I think. We're able to define, 3 or 4 things that are most important to us. But if we're actually spend the time defining what those values are, and putting in the work to do that, it becomes incredibly helpful, and in my world, very grounding, because it becomes my set point. It becomes the place that I do everything from, right? So whether it's parenting or being a spouse or a friend or a professional, that's my sort of, that's my true north, or that's my center point. And so thank you. Thank you for introducing me to that work and really helping me bring it home. Fascinating stuff. So I think one of the things that how it is that you can be really helpful in our conversation today, and people that are going to be watching, Kristin, is, we talked a little about this before we started. Can you share, through your values, I guess, so through that lens, how it is day to day? Like, you had described a really cool morning that you had today. Do you mind sharing what that was and sort of what it meant for you?
Yeah, for sure. So to touch on like kind of the link between values, and then, so there's a difference between knowing your values and them being something that you can put on your website or site or whatever, and actually like living your values.
Right.
And the where it actually makes a difference is where you use your values as a decision-making tool on where you invest your 2 most precious resources, your time and your energy. And to me, that's the invaluable piece around really connecting deeply to what matters to you most, is where am I going to invest my time and my energy? So this morning I woke up and I have a morning routine that I've developed, and this has taken me a long time, because I have had morning routines that have been extrinsically motivated, where it's like, I have to work out, I have to meditate, and it was have to's all around it. And actually, through this whole crisis lately, I've really like loosened that up a little bit and been like, what is going to like energize me the most? Because energy is like, precious right now. So my morning now starts a lot slower. I read in the morning, I journal, and then this morning so one of my big values is like constantly learning. And it's something that really energizes me. So there is a webinar going on by Spring Activator. They're an amazing Vancouver-based company that supports entrepreneurs and startups, and they're an accelerator. And Keith Ippel, who's the CEO and founder of that company, was doing a webinar. And so I thought about sitting down and watching it at 9. I wanted to listen to it in my office. And then I was like, you know what? I don't want to be in my office today. I want to be outside in nature. It's beautiful. And that's another one of my values. So I was able to, use that as a decision-making tool of like, how can I create, and this from the whole like leadership program, but multi-way wins, where you're doing one thing and it's positively hitting on multiple values.
Yep.
And so this morning was so enriching because I got to sit in the sun, dip my toes in the water, listen to this awesome webinar that I got super inspired by. And that was probably the highest return on investment hour that I could get to start my day. So that's just a little example around how values can be lived, as opposed to just like, I value nature and I value learning, and those are nice,
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think most of us at some level, at least people that I've come across as of late, so during pandemic for sure, are incredibly intrigued by what that could look like. So time is precious. Energy is even more precious. Current day especially. Where do I start, right? So even if I was to forget about devising a plan. If I was to tap into a place in me that said, hey, I wouldn't, so multi-way wins, right? So looking at creating one experience where I'm able to scratch a few itches within that one experience. How does that start? So Kristin, I don't know, you want to maybe spitball a bit, or maybe what would you want to share with people that are intrigued or interested in that first step into living a fruitful, sort of intentional afternoon? or morning.
Yeah.
What are you
If you're
talking
open to it, do you want to do a little coaching? So I'll show you how I would coach someone on this and work
Go.
with you.
Let's go. Yeah.
Sweet. And I know you already do a lot of this, but it might open something up of something new. So,
Just don't send me an invoice at the end. We'll be okay.
yeah, don't worry. Okay, sweet. So where I would start with people is super simple, is really just tuning into what I call energy gainers and energy drainers. So if you were just to like center yourself and look at maybe this past week of your life, because right now things are changing so fast. So let's just go with a week rather than like always.
Yeah.
In the past week, what were the specific moments in time that added energy and fulfillment to that gas tank of yours? And just describe maybe 2 to 3.
Yeah. So definitely walks. So being out in nature. So connected to, as you know, we live up in the mountains. So lots of trees and forests and trails. Every time I connect with nature, and I know it's a value of mine,
Awesome.
I feel rejuvenated. So that definitely replenishes my batteries. Drove out last night to Delta to go pick up my favorite pizza because God damn it, I deserved it. So I made the 40-minute drive. I couldn't wait to get home to eat it. But just the experience of doing that for me, so getting a bit of a drive by myself. So spending that 40 minutes, well, I guess about an hour and a half in the car in total to, to just go do something that was incredibly selfish. My wife had no interest in pizza. And the kids were already sleeping, but it was for me. And so that felt really good. And it carried into my morning. Like I feel rejuvenated this morning as a result. You asked for a couple, right?
Yeah.
So third one, this, like you're my 4th podcast this week. And every time I do one, I walk away feeling re-energized.
Nice.
I'm going to suck as a client because I will tell you that as maybe a test dummy in a coaching call, because I'll tell you that, yeah, if I identify, as you're saying, the thing that drains me, I'm gone. I'm out. Either I'll adjust or find another way to go about an activity that I think is exciting to me or something that I want to do. But if it's not there for me, no thanks. I'm not going to try to squeeze water from a rock.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's these activities that are like energy drainers, like they're just like, as soon as you start doing them, it takes you way down, and then ones that are energy gainers. So when you start looking at those energy gainers, those things that like, make you feel alive, that add energy to your tank, those are clues for you around what your values are. Yep. And I actually heard a few values potentially in what you were sharing. So you shared like nature, like physical activity, like getting out, moving your body, having self-care, like within the driving, like all of those kind of things. It's like, it could look like getting pizza, but it's actually probably at the root something a little bit more along the lines of like self-care, and like, what do I need right now? And giving yourself the space, whether it be pizza or time alone or a drive, it's more around what do I need right now to nourish myself. Yep. Yeah. So that's how you would start, is like, that's the most basic level. Look for the energy, like gainers, make sure to avoid the energy drainers, especially right now. There's some more work we could do around like working through your strength to make energy drainers if they're needed to do. But right now, just focus on those. And then the multi-way wins are how can you bring them together? So you're one around going out in nature with a walk for a walk. I mean, the multi-way win would be, how do you have conversations like this while doing that potentially, right? So that's that's like taking it to the next level. So sure. That's kind of, if we're to keep it quite simple, that's what I would suggest for people.
That's awesome. Thanks for breaking it down like that. And I think the way that we sort of, modeled that, I think it'll be incredibly helpful for people. Because I think, again, unless you've done the deeper work and you've kind of gone through the structured sort of deep dive into, the multi-way wins, or even just defining those values, that we go through our days unaware of where your energy is being replenished and where it's being drained. And I think the one thing that I've been encouraging is pay attention, slow things down. And, at the end of your day or in the middle of the day, and identify the spots that are where you're catching certain feelings or certain energies, and honor those. Like, make sense of it, put your finger on it, and then damn it, do something about it. So if something is
That's the
making you
key.
feel re-energized or something's making you feel good. So podcasting for me, yeah, if any part of this was draining for me, like I said, I'm out. I'm doing this because I've come to the realization pretty quickly in like my second episode that, oh shit, this is going to be a thing where I'm going to feel great. I'm scratching a creative itch. I'm able to be, social with you and my guests. So that's a high value of mine as well, that connection.
Yeah.
And I get to put it out and hopefully be in service of those that are watching it. So triple win right there. Like there's a lot to the podcast. And so my hope, and I know yours as well, is that anybody that's watching this gets that and understands that. And if it's still not resonating through our conversation today, then reach out, then find one of us and go, hey, what did you mean by that? Because it's important.
Yeah.
It's important.
And here's the thing. So it's, so the interesting thing about the energy conversation, we're linking it to values now because they are very linked, but energy is an renewable resource. So unlike time, which is finite, and we have, everyone has 24 hours in a day, and it can feel like it goes by in a second, or it can feel like the longest stretch of time, there is. But that's really how you meet that time. So if you, right now, I know a lot of people that I'm talking to, a lot of leaders, they're in kind of these like two camps. Is one, they have no time for themselves because life has become so integrated and they're being teachers and parents and entrepreneurs, and this is all what's happening within their day. Yeah. And there's other people who like work has just stopped and they're like, what the hell do I do with all this time? And it's like, and it is another kind of anxiety. And the key to that, rather than trying to manage the time, which is finite, the work is to manage the energy. So even if you only get 1 hour in the day to yourself, and that might sound like even a stretch. I was talking to someone yesterday, like, I don't even get an hour. Yeah. Like, okay, you get 5 minutes. How do you show up to that 5 minutes fully resourced so you can use that 5 minutes to plug in and recharge? And so that's where the energy work and cluing into what are the things that can like give you that little like input. Yeah. That's where that's so powerful.
Absolutely. And my sort of kick in the ass to people out there that are hearing that and going, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense, is damn it, do it and then make it sustainable. Like work it, be aware of it, and then work it into your routine. Make it.
Yeah, and start small, right? Because absolutely. Like be kind to yourself right now and start small, and we don't have to be, there's no rules around any of this. So even if it's 1 minute a day, that's like practice. And so start there.
Agreed. My coach always tells me to set the bar so low that I trip over it.
Yeah, I love that.
Right. And obviously, not obviously, but definitely being good to yourself, such an important thing at this time. So if you only have that hour, what are you going to do with it? Hey, so here, I'll share with you first. There's a couple of 20-minute yoga videos, and I know you're big into yoga, that I've been doing the last couple of weeks at home. I do that after 9:30 p.m. So my boys usually are both, well, not always, they're down by 8 p.m. And then my wife, Sahar, 9:15, 9:30, she's out. And then guess what? I'm up until 1 a.m. because it gives me that 3.5 or 4 hour window to do me. Whereas in other pockets in my day, that's tough to do. And so I get carte blanche on how I'm going to spend that 3 to 4 hours to end my day. So for me, 20 minutes of yoga, YouTube video on my TV, on the ground, in the office or upstairs in the living room.
Nice.
That's one of the things I've identified as being incredibly rejuvenating, to recharge. So when it comes to energy, incredibly helpful. Obviously, body physicality. So taking care of my body and getting a good stretch. Kristin, what are some examples of what you're doing? You've already shared a couple, but when you get those, say you only have, maybe you don't have 3 hours at the end of the night because you're exhausted and you're gone to sleep. Yeah. Maybe you only have.
I'm like a 9:30 in bed person. So.
Atta girl. Yeah, good on you. So when you have those pockets of time, what are the type of things that you're doing? Are there examples of kind of how you're boosting energy? I know this is unique to everybody, but.
Yeah, it's unique to everyone, and it'll be different things on different days. So like asking what I need, but the one like go-to that I know will always support is, getting outside, even on a rainy day, getting in the woods, going near the beach, getting in the water. Recently, I've been doing, this is a little bit more extreme, but on my runs, I've been doing an ocean dip. And talk about like increasing energy. It's amazing. And it takes something to go in, like it definitely takes something to go in. But once I'm in and I spend like a minute or so in the water, that coldness and that refreshing, it's like, there's nothing like it. So that's like good. And then, there's just like little things too. So writing can be really helpful when my head's spinning and I've got lots of thoughts. It's just free writing around like what's on my mind, what are the different ideas, capturing them. That's like really soothing for me. So those are just a couple of ideas.
That's cool. When you came on, we jumped onto the call a few minutes before we hit record. I was telling you that I spend throughout the day, probably 15 minutes total, which is about 3 songs. I'll play music really loud in my office and I'll act a fool.
Yeah, fun.
Because it's like,
we should get a podcast with that, like
right?
just a solo episode.
I don't know if the world's ready for that or not. I'll do some dance parties with the boys because they love music. My wife and I love music, and it's so cool to watch them like attached to some of the stuff that we listen to, and it's rad. But I think what I'll share is just that. It's obvious that it serves me well because I continue to do it. So before I jump on a call with you, I did what did I do? Chris Brown, Beautiful People, Benny Benassi and Chris Brown. One of my favorite tracks, probably 10 years ago. And I just geeked out to it. And so that serves me well because it centers me. It removes me from, the first 3 hours of my day before we jumped on, which was great. But I was around a couple of toddlers and that's work. You have to manage that. My wife went up to the shower. She's like, hey, can you watch the boys for 45 minutes? And it was great. But anybody that has a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old or a couple of toddlers or kids at home right now, they know that's a grind. And so in order for me to reset, I have to pay attention to, paying attention to energy. As much as the boys rejuvenate me, there's a bit of a drain there. And so to get onto a call with Kristin and get present and be all of me, I require that, again, that 4 or 5 minute reset. My choice happens to be music. For you or for anybody listening, it might be, I don't know, a quick YouTube video. It could be a quick phone call to a friend just to say hi. Hey, how's your morning? But I think the encouragement from us is find that thing, find those things and pay attention to them. Start to implement them in simple ways into your life and see if it creates a shift for you. Yeah. Because we need that now.
Yeah. And to make the link to leadership is like, that really is what self-leadership is all about. And self-leadership isn't selfish. It's necessary so that you can show up for your teams, for your people, for your business. I was talking to one entrepreneur yesterday and we were just talking about business strategy during this time. And I asked them, I was like, what do you need right now? Do you really need to think about what's possible and all the other things that could be in the future? Or do you need to get strong right now? Because if you're not strong and if you're not able to show up, like actually from a like psychological perspective, if we're working from a fight, flight, or freeze, like survival instinct, creativity shuts down. Like our prefrontal cortex is not operating when we're working from our survival instinct. So there's no point in trying to create the next big thing or innovate your business if you're not taking care of yourself and really getting that nervous system like in alignment. So all of the things that we're talking about, yes, they're nice. Yes, they make us feel good. But the ripple effect from that is that then you can actually show up for your people in your business. And we can't reverse it. We can't do it the other way. It has to start with ourselves.
Yep. Yeah, you captured that beautifully. And I think what it really helped me do was understand, I think, my own process, Kristin, because I started the podcast. And so I'm out here doing something positive at a time where it's really tough to do something positive for a lot of people. And I think that's really cool. I'm going to process that after the call for sure, because I think it's a reflection for me. I found like this, I feel as if this has been my opportunity or my moment or my calling to get out here and to serve those around me by having connected conversations with fascinating people. But I wouldn't have been able to do that unless I felt that strength,
Yeah.
that deep sort of sense of strength and of peace, I guess, in ways. Because look, the first, I've shared this as well, the first couple of days, certainly when the pandemic hit the coast here in Vancouver, Kristen's in Kitsilano, by the way, so we're both local to each other, is the first couple of days when it hit BC, there was an element of shock. I think what was talked about in early stages was there was like this sense of grieving or grief that sort of kicked in for a lot of people. And I went through that. Like I was absolutely in that. It still comes and goes in moments. But by and large, I made a decision kind of a couple of days in to be like, I have a choice here. Like I have a choice to be, as we always do, I have a choice to be on at least one of two sides of a fence. One of them is, oh boy, this is tough. What am I going to do? And do nothing about it. And I respect and honor those people's process because everybody has their own. And then there's the other side, which is I'm going to step up and step into my values and be what has always been the most important things to me. And one of those functions is to be in service of others. So I found this particular platform. If we didn't have the pandemic, you and I'd probably be hanging out in the same room and doing a podcast, but here we are. So yeah, I forgot how to bring that all together, but it was relevant to what you just described. And I appreciate you doing that. So cool. Leadership. What is your call to action? If there was like one or two things that if you had a wish list of things that all leaders would be sort of living through right now. So let's talk about professional leaders. So titled leaders in organizations. What is that, Kristin?
I'm going to refuse to be limited to titled leaders in organizations. I've got a huge
I know you well
bias
enough to know
towards
Okay.
that. No, we're all leaders no matter what. And that is actually what we're being called to more than ever, in my opinion, right now, is that we're being called for a different type of leader to step forward. And, if there's, like you described in this, there's an opportunity to step into our values and lead in a different way. And the world needs leaders who are values driven, who are willing to take a stand for what they believe, to look for opportunities that are going to help the collective, not just the individual. And so I'm a huge believer in entrepreneurship, and I left the corporate world in leadership development because I really wanted to support small businesses and entrepreneurs, because I believe that all businesses, even big corporate businesses, are vehicles to create positive social change in the world if we choose. And that would be my call to action right now, is no matter what you do, whether you're a solopreneur or you're leading a big corporation, is looking at how you can use your business as a vehicle for positive change in the world that supports the collective, not just our individual desires and needs. And I think we're starting to see more and more leaders step up to the plate and do that in big ways and small. And I love it. And it's like, I think if anything, if there's a silver lining in any of this, that would be it, is a bit of a turning around how we look at and use business. And we were talking about that just before we even pressed record, around how to support local businesses and businesses that are purpose driven and values driven, and really allow our money and our decisions to choose based on the things that align with us. So yeah, I know it's a long answer, but I'm super passionate about that. So
no, that's why I asked. That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think, for me, it's the prospect of us coming out of this into the next place, whatever that looks like. I think we've already arrived at the next place, but maybe the next place. Excuse me, is that we have, as a society, locally and beyond, we've developed people that are more aligned with self-leadership than ever before. you know, and really recognizing and taking this period of time as an opportunity to go, hey, what matters to me? Who am I? Where do I get rejuvenated? You know, where does that energy need to come from? Or what are my sources of inspiration? Excuse me. Took a hit of water down the wrong pipe. And
yeah, not good.
Yeah, that part of this period of time, I think, is for especially people like you and I that, you know, spend our days and nights. Oh boy. Developing or assisting in the process, or, you know, being supportive in people's own journey and in becoming leaders. That, yeah, a lot of that work is available now. You just kind of have to, you know, slow things down, take a pause, and look deep inside and go, hey, what do I need?
Yeah.
What do people, and then what do people around me need? Because as you and I know, I go out last night, grab that pizza, get home at 10 o'clock. I wake up this morning, surprise, I'm a better dad. I'm lighter on my feet. I've got a little more patience. So my wife approaches me and says, hey, I need 45 minutes to shower. I really want to take my time and wash my hair. I'm like, oh yeah, take your time, take an hour. You're fine. You know, and that's kind of, so I
need to know where this pizza place is. That sounds like magic pizza.
Yeah, if I plug this and one of them sees it, I mean, yes, they're not, but yeah, I need to get like a pizza if I'm going to give them a free plug. Apollo Pizza in North Delta.
Pardon? Sorry, I didn't miss that.
Apollo Pizza in North Delta.
Apollo Pizza. Yeah, nice.
I grew up in North Delta. I've lived in many places since then, but yeah, the one thing that always kind of brings me back to, so yes, my wife, you know, I'm sure this is familiar for everybody. The hey, what are we having for dinner tonight type gig. The boys are always set up, you know, they've got a great meal, but then there's her and I. It's like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, you know what? It's gloomy out. It's raining. I don't feel like I'm the chef in the house. Sahar will jump in and, you know, but I love cooking. I'm on like I think it would have been like day 6 yesterday. I'm like, I'm not cooking fresh food today. Just not doing it. It's gloomy out. I've had a busy day. I just want to go grab my childhood pizza and come home and just be about that. I cracked 2 beer, had 3 pieces of pizza, and life
called it a night.
It was fantastic. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. What do you want to leave us with, Kristin? Again, I really appreciate the time. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. You and I love chatting and hanging out as it is. Yeah. And so, yeah, you know, it's really good to see your face. Tell us what you want to leave us with. And then please let people know how they can get a hold of you. I'll definitely, in the description of the video, I'll leave some of your info if you're okay with that. But yeah, what wisdom or what sort of steps or thoughts do you want to leave us with?
Oh, wow. Well, maybe I'll leave you with a coaching question that to sit on and ponder. And it's the question that I've been playing with people from, you know, the beginning is, once you kind of have that, you're feeling okay, the question you can ask yourself is, how can you use this time as a time for expansion? And that can mean a lot of different things, but just play with it and look at what that can mean for you. And you know, use this time as a time for, don't lose this opportunity for what it can be, which is a time for expansion.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks so much for having me. And yeah, if anyone wants to get in touch or hold, you can just connect with me through either Instagram. I'm probably most active on there, just Kristin Constable, or through my website, kristinconstable.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kristin. Lots of fun.
Thanks.
Enjoy the rest of the day. We'll chat soon. Bye.